You're listening to Chaos Public Radio.
Welcome back to Gender Non-Conforming Chat. I am your host, Mary Jane Blank, and today I have with me Ann Dawson. How you doing, Ann?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's a great day. Um, no, no, uh, no infections. It's not raining. It's all good.
The plague is being kept at bay.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, being an introvert, being a gamer introvert, where I do everything at home, has suddenly become a boon.
Same. Just like all the warnings, stay inside. Okay, gotcha.
It's like, oh, well, I was just playing Dark Souls for 6 hours, but I guess I'll just keep doing that. Oh, well. So what do you do? If yeah.
Like for a job?
Or like, whatever, what is, like, yeah, what is your, I guess, like, or what is your, like, passion? I don't know, like, whatever you want to say, like, or if there's anything internet pluggable, like, obviously you can plug it in
internet
as well,
pluggable.
But
Okay.
yeah, I mean, may as well get it at the beginning and the end.
Alright, well,
Plug the
I
listeners
do.
from both holes.
Yes. I run a YouTube channel called AndarNation Propaganda, in which I talk about basically anything that's on my mind at any given time, but mostly leftist whatever. So yeah, that's cool. That's mostly what I focus my time with.
Awesome.
Because as far as jobs goes, right now I'm currently unemployed, so
Yep, same. I'm doing the whole, like, trying to figure out how to make money with the things I know how to do or like doing,
and I come to find that the things I know how to do are less than I thought previously.
Right. Where it's like, okay, how do I make, like I have a video game YouTube channel, and it's just basically like, it's just like, you know what? I like video games are my biggest hobby. So, like, where can I put video games? How can I, like,
Right.
try to do anything?
And like when it comes to like leftist stuff for my channel, I'm just like, well, I've been like a leftist for most of my life. I don't know shit. What the fuck is wrong with me?
Right, yeah, no, I actually was kind of in that same place right now myself, where I've been, a leftist for my whole adult life, but I'm at the point now where I'm, like, wanting to, like, read stuff, and I almost wanted to do a thing where, like, I bought, all 3 volumes of Capital, by Marx and
no.
Engels. Yeah, I know, it's bigger than my literal textbooks. It's massive. And yeah, so I was thinking of, like, maybe reading something like that. Although I also bought the Communist Manifesto, which was just hilarious. That I got the biggest and smallest books that I own, and they're both by
So,
Marx.
I started my leftist journey in like middle school because they had briefly mentioned communism in history class, just ever so briefly, not enough to like get most people interested. But I heard, and so I went out of my way to get the Communist Manifesto and read that, and then didn't do anything for like 10 years.
Sure.
And I'm like, this is my entire leftist education is in this pamphlet.
My
And
goodness.
that's enough, because I mean that's what the manifesto was kind of designed for. It was designed for working class people, so that was like short enough and had all the main points. Like, this is roughly what socialism and communism is. There you go. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, like, resources like that are all really good, because, like, that's sort of where I end up coming at it from, is, like, I've known a lot of people who knew more about different leftist theories than me, for a long time, like, my even from, like, yeah, from, like, a young age, like, in middle school and whatnot. But for me, it was more like, yeah, I basically know, like, how I fall and, like, sort of what I believe, but, like, I don't actually know the theory that sort of, like, supports that or, like, makes that more concrete or more into, like, like, more of an idea, like, if someone asked me, like, how I want society to be run, like, I'm starting to have a better answer, not just in a utopian idealistic sense, but in, like, a practical sense, like, yeah, living in the United States right now, that's a big sort of thing, is, like, wanting to create, like, a dual power structure, realizing how the powers that be are not only not, looking out for us, but are also, like, working against us, basically, and so we have to kind of do a lot for each other. That's my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of in the same place, because when I started the channel, I started doing more actual research into things. And the thing that is helping guide my like practical philosophy is focusing on like my small rural hometown in West New York, and like how could I make that some sort of anarcho-communist commune? And I'm like, well, I guess I'd start with like just like making food security and water security, and
Right.
that is very doable. Like planting community gardens and things like that would be a start in the right direction.
Exactly. No, yeah, that's my belief exactly. That's why I've always I went to a very like hippie town for college, and so like I was familiar with like food not bombs and things like that, or what was it called? It was like food not lawns, I think was one of them. It was like because like that
Right.
was their whole thing, was they just like planted a bunch of food in their front yard as like part of their propaganda. You know what I mean? And like I said, like it's good. Like I think that's a great start. Like just like take care of people's basic needs, right? And like that's the first step.
Right, because having like food security separate from the capitalist economic model would be a huge subversion. And then after the food security, figure out some sort of housing issue. And by the point you have that food security, you've already established yourself in the community as like a leading figure. You can then direct them towards more radical goals.
Sure, yeah, and it, yeah, and it also, yeah, is a way to coalesce people around those ideas. Yeah, and you get folks who are like, who might be turned off by the phrase, by like the name communism or anarchism or whatever, or even leftism for some moderates, I
Mhm.
guess. But you can introduce the ideas that like, because they're so like, yeah, they just take care of your basic needs, like it's hard to not like them, and then it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm like helping maintain this like community garden, huh? What else could I do?
I'm here doing work with my neighbors for each other, and like,
Yeah.
what else could we do?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like even honestly, you know what? Like even if someone does not come to that conclusion, even just getting involved in the community garden to me is like that's a huge one. That's a huge step. Like I would feel so accomplished even though that is like the first baby step.
Yes.
Anyway, so as wonderful as that tangent was, I'm getting so good at this now. I actually don't talk about gender for the first 5 minutes.
Let's talk about our entire revolutionary plan.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And yeah. My favorite thing too. You said you listened to some of the other episodes. My favorite quote still has to be, "All trans people are anarcho-communists
Yes.
or
You either
anarcho-socialists."
become one after the fact or one before the fact.
Yep. Pretty much. It seems to be. It turns out when you're oppressed in society. And your perspective changes on that too. I feel like that's part of being trans, that is part of what radicalizes people, is not just finding places for acceptance, but also just like that change of perspective. You know what I mean? Like I've seen like America and California society from as a man and as a woman. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
I've seen it in different ways. Like um, yeah, like you just start understanding the system. Even if I hadn't had sort of an education of having to like trying to actively see those like power structures, I feel like it is a way where like even if you're not looking for it, you can't help it. That's your experience.
Right.
Anyway, so so what is your gender, or what's your gender journey? If you
Um, like I was saying, before we started recording, I've only been out to myself for like 6 months or so, so I'm still very much in a I don't really know kind of situation.
mhm.
But right now, I am more um thinking that I am a non-binary trans woman, and I am still rocking around with the term gender fluid, um,
Radical, cool.
flowing between womanhood and just like kind of an agender type thing.
Damn. Yeah. Um like I said before we started, yeah, that's kind of my perspective as well. That's actually like pretty close to that's like kind of how I see myself too. Like yeah, I see my gender a little bit differently, but like yeah, I sort of find myself like in a center, and like that's where my gender journey started personally, was like through androgyny first, and
Mhm.
then I sort of found my like womanhood later. um,
Like the thing that like I only just started calling myself like a capital W woman like literally a month ago because I was
wow.
talking to a non-binary friend of mine from like high school, and I was basically like, "Hey, I'm trans, and you're the only trans person I know. Please help." And they were very nice and sent me a bunch of resources. And one of the ones they sent me was this like story thing where you can just insert different pronouns and words like woman and just experiment around, like putting your name in and things
Interesting.
like that. And I found that while I was using they there a lot and will still accept those, that I actually didn't respond very well to them as much as I thought I would. And I responded very well to she, her, and being called woman within those fill in the blank Mad Lib stories. So that helped a lot actually.
Right, yeah, like a safe conceptual space uh to like think about these things, to yeah, to explore those like concepts without like there's a lot of pressure where it's like in like social situations and whatnot, like that's
Mm-hmm.
where I've been, that's a big problem for me, and where having a lot of support has been helpful because like it's like I get enough people I know introduced to it, and then they get everyone else sort of like, that's how my family found out, like got on board, was sort of like my parents understood, and then they sort of like told my like great aunt, then was like talking to me about it, and she's like a moderate Midwestern Republican, but like she's, you know, trying hard to understand, and is like not trying to gaslight me or anything too. It was just like, all
Mm-hmm.
right, we, you know, like she at least accepted that trans people are real, and like so that like made the conversation so easy. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's a big issue, is really that. Anyway, so knowing that, so your gender is a little fluid, perhaps going
Yes.
between womanhood and agender, or sort of, you know, some like other gender fluid have sort of said, gender fluid
Yes.
people have said,
It's all
like,
just a big mush. I don't.
yeah. Knowing that, how would you describe your sexuality? Um,
I would describe my sexuality as um gay, lesbian,
okay,
and
with a question mark.
yeah, well, like I am attracted to women and femininity, and before I was like, let's say, like when I realized I was trans, I didn't realize that that then also made me a lesbian too, because like it was kind of just a semantic like, oh yeah, I'm a girl, that means, and I like undergirl, that means I'm gay now.
Yeah, right. Uh, yeah, it's sort of incidental. I like
Yeah.
that. So you did not have a separate or connected like sexuality journey. It was much more that like your sexuality has been what it is, and then like as your gender changed, you're like, oh, I guess this means.
Yeah, it was literally like weeks after the fact and was like, wait a minute.
Hey, wait a minute! I got another one of them letters under my belt.
I'm just collecting all of them.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's what I say. As so, for me personally, yeah, I'm bisexual, but I'm homoromantic. So, from a practical perspective, it's better for me to identify as a lesbian, which means I am LGBT. I covered all.
But I think one of the things that helped, one of the reasons that the discovery was kind of incidental like it was, is because I was already in a committed relationship,
Oh,
being literally married.
okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
So coming out to my wife, who was bisexual and was very supporting and all of that stuff. So everything
Hmm.
everything went well. I
That
know
is so awesome.
that can go poorly for some people, but it did not.
Yeah. That's really funny. So, I'm actually kind of curious. I found that looking back, I was always attracted to bi women. Like, do you find that has been the case, or was it just sort of like you were always kind of attracted to queer women, but not having the conceptual space to like be attracted to other than bi women, basically?
Um, I don't think so. I don't think there was ever like an attraction to someone else's sexuality, I
Oh,
guess.
okay, sure.
Um, if they're into me, I'm pretty into them. I don't.
Sure. Okay, yeah, you're ansexual. If they're into you, you
Yes.
got
Oh
it.
yeah.
You know what? That's valid. That's totally legit. Like, and also the queerest shit I ever heard. That's amazing. Yeah. No, for me, it was just always a thing, so that's why I had to ask. Um,
Right.
I'm not actually looking at anything. I'm looking into the dead air as I'm trying to think of like, okay.
The universe will bring forth the questions.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. The decorations of my room will bring forth the questions. Do you like anime? Damn it, that was the first thing I saw.
Anime. I do like anime, and I wish I liked anime more. But when I think about the reasons I want to like anime more, it's usually because I'm disappointed often by the animes I end up watching. Like,
Yeah.
I think discovering new animes that I actually would enjoy is kind of difficult because I'm kind of restricted to whatever is on Hulu or Netflix, and it's not the best selection in the world.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It's like, yeah, I feel that there, and honestly, I feel the same way. That's how I've been feeling about movies myself recently too. It's just like, and with anime, yeah, it's like I want to like these things. I want to like more, but it's just like every time I dip my toe in, I don't really get good results.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I feel
Like
that.
I like back in like late high school and post high school because I only had like one semester of college before
Oh, okay.
bad stuff happened.
Sure.
Like I really got into animes like Full Metal Alchemist and the stuff, so I was like a late discoverer of classic stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I binged all of that stuff, and then I was left with a profound emptiness as I tried to get into new animes that were always like misogynistic and like
Yeah.
here are these underage children that are hypersexualized and just like this isn't. I wanted the anime where the teenagers kill God. That's what I signed
Yes.
up for.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. Right. That's pretty much like that was kind of my thing too. Like I was a senior in high school. My friend was giving me his DVDs because like him and his parents and his brother were all a bunch of weeaboos. So they just had a bunch of DVDs to let me borrow. And yeah, it was kind of that same kind of thing. It's like, all right, well, I've I've seen a lot, and I'm pretty good. Yeah. So I guess really the question I want to ask that then can sort of interrelate to the other topics we talked about is so are you a nerd? Are you into like the general like nerdy shit, video games and whatnot?
Oh, absolutely.
Hell yeah. Actually,
Video games, mostly video games. I'm gonna say.
Mhm.
I feel like when it comes to popular culture and movies and music, I'm always like lacking
Sure.
because I just played so many damn video games. Everything else fell by the wayside.
Yes. No, same. And it's the kind of thing where, like, when the average game, like, I guess it depends on the era of game that you're playing, but, like, I would say average game is, like, 20 hours. Like,
Yeah,
it's a huge
I don't got time
investment.
for other shit.
Exactly. Or, like, nowadays, like, oh, God, like, I hate getting invested into, like, 100-hour games. Like, I don't hate it, but, like, it's hard. Like I said, like I was playing Dark Souls last year, and it's like, all right, I've played this for 100 hours and I'm finally done. Like, fuck. I mean, I didn't
Like
stop, but
I also had that churn against. It's really funny because as a child and teenager, I was always looking for like whatever game has the most stuff and the biggest map. And it was literally like looking at the back of boxes and like, okay, this one has a map that is 800 kilometers. This is the game for me.
right.
And then like as an adult, I look at that same shit and go like, oh, it's an empty barren wasteland where I have to spend 20 minutes just getting to a place.
Just
That
driving
doesn't sound
around.
fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, same. Yeah, that was exactly my thing too. It was like I had the same feelings, growing up, being in high school during like the Xbox era, where like open world was barely a thing that they could start exploring. Like
Hmm.
what demystified it for me was playing through the entirety of Grand Theft Auto 4 because so the way that game points out that flaw very well is the last mission of the game, the last story mission. You have to go from one side of the map all the way to the other every single time if you restart the mission. So like
Oh
there's
god.
literally like 20 minutes of driving across the entire map just to get to the hard part, just to get to the huge shootout and the boat chase and whatnot. You know what I mean?
And it's not an easy mission. You fail it a lot.
No, that's what I'm saying. No, exactly. And you can't
Like, I
rage
remember
quit.
specifically in that mission, there's a point where you have to take a dirt bike over this jump to land inside a helicopter.
Yes.
But on the environment, they placed a random, like, debris tire in the pathway, and I would just always hit that tire because, like, to swerve around it, I would lose speed and not make the jump, and just, it was a mess.
No, exactly. Oh god, and that's always how it goes in that game is, and other similar kind of the Grand Theft Auto stuff. Like, that's exactly right. Like I would fail a few times and get really like I would rage quit and then like come back and it would take 45 minutes or something just to get back to that frustration. Oh god. It's kind of ironic now because I'm like really into Saints Row right now too. So it's like kind of funny this like full circling like where like I found the ways like because the problem with those games, right, with anything like too open world or like the crafting games, right, is you have to make your own fun. And so like if you want more of like a curated if you want like to chill out more, unless that's, I don't know, I guess it all depends on how you relax or whatever, but like there's a very different kind of chill to like a very narrative driven game that's very cinematic. Like I'm the other game I'm playing right now is like Dead Space, right? It's like an action game that is very narrative driven, very linear, a lot of dialogue and whatnot, versus like an open world game where yeah, like anything you do can be the fun, and so it's just like trying to like just allowing that sort of space. Anyway, I don't know. I love video games, so.
Yeah, the path I took was more getting into strategy games, starting with like Civilization and then moving on to Paradox grand strategy games like Crusader Kings and Europa Universalis. And what I think is the sweet spot for me in video games is a lot of complicated, like a lot of systems on top of systems is what I like.
Sure. Yeah, no, Civilization is good for that. There's a lot of, yeah. When you say Paradox, I'm like, yeah, pretty much. Like, I'm just gonna name a couple games, like the Paradox games I play, but I'm like, yep, no, those are also Paradox games, like Stellaris or City Skylines, like,
those two.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's exactly what it is for me. Like, Stellaris is this game that I've put so many hours into, and then I have to ask myself, like, wait, why am I playing this? Like, what am I trying to get out of this game?
Because and I spend like I can play Victoria 2 and just kind of lose an entire 8 hours and then wake up from that 8 hours going, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
And what's extra frustrating is that these games don't like. A lot of things are art, and I think those games are that, but I walk away from those games being like bankrupted intellectually in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's just like it's taken everything from me. It's just taken my brain. Fuck, I hear you. That's how I feel when I play Stellaris a lot. Like when I hit my like third day of like playing a particular like species or whatever, or civilization or whatever. But that the versus like when I played Civilization. So yeah, I got deep into Civilization 4 for a while, and like I actually I'm glad I recorded this on Instagram, where it's like right when I started, I like recorded like the silly little things at the beginning, and then 12 hours later, I'm still playing the same, like, because like it's such an intense experience, like it's just so, and like I want to get through it all, you know, but it takes like 13 hours to get through like a game if you set it on fast or like normal or something. Like that's how I found it for me. Yeah, is like it like taps into something for me where it's just like, oh shit, I'm putting way too much into this, but it's very hard to stop.
My entire being is going into this civilization.
Yeah, exactly. Oh god, no, that's why I actually I think that's why I prefer Civilization to like Stellaris or like those styles differently. Is like the turn-based thing of like the turn-based style of Civilization, like is just so like that's kind of how I want to play like Cities and Stellaris anyway, kind of, you know what I mean? Like it's just like playing on fast speed and constantly pausing whenever something comes up, but things are constantly coming up at all times, so
maximum speed, I got 20 pop-ups in a row I have to deal with.
Pretty much, yeah, exactly.
And like I play them enough to where like I kind of recognize what the pop-up is by its headline, and so I'm just like muscle memory clicking through them, and just like I am walking away from these games, taking away absolutely nothing.
Right. No, exactly, because like, so that's the irony, is like, what I end up really liking about it is like the creation, because like, I like the way that they try to describe society, and it's a very interesting exercise of like I like Stellaris's in particular too, how it's like, I think it's like 8 points or 6 points or whatever, and like on opposite sides you can like be authoritarian or oh god, I can, or yeah, I think egalitarian, right? You can be xenophobic or xenophilic, and I just like the or you can be extreme in these different ways, and yeah, I just think that's an interesting way of conceptualizing. Like, I just like that intellectualizing of like society, because like it inspired me too to do the same kind of thing, and it made me realize some crazy things, like I was like, okay, like, what are, if I put society into just a bunch of yes or no questions, right? The first question I came up with was like inclusive versus exclusive, and I'm like, okay, I've just eliminated all of real world, because all of the real world is exclusive in some fashion, even, you know what I mean? Like, there's no,
You've already created an idyllic
yeah, exactly,
world.
just by this yes or no question, the first one. It's like, shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember they used to have more points because they used to have collectivist versus something else, and they just merged that in with materialist.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, like materialist versus
And
spiritual, I think.
yeah, and that made me think of like, yeah, I guess these are all very materialistic ideologies concerned with things, and I don't know, it was an interesting. Like, I regret not being able to play collectivists anymore,
Yeah.
but it was an interesting point that I had not considered previously to that. Getting philosophy through grand strategy game patch updates.
Hey, you know what? Like, this is part of my background as well. In my, I have a film degree that in digital media as well, and so that was part of it. Was like, I read a book, or parts of a book, that was just video games and philosophy, and like how, so yeah, there's this way where we can relate how games sort of trying to gamify the real world, you can, is like its own philosophy of looking at it, right? Versus like, there are also games where like what they present is very unique to video games, you know. Like, one of their examples was, one of the chapters was on like Zerg, and Zerging as a concept, because like it's completely unique to video games, at least as an art form, you know. This idea of just overwhelming, yeah, like that kind of strategy is not really, and that concept, like, because it's not just about the strategy, like the story of StarCraft is like all about it too. Anyway, so yeah, it's very ripe. But it's always funny to be like, when I was a young child, video games were said to be rotting your brain, and now they're making me rethink how to build society.
I have to take my entire revolutionary plan back to step one. Damn it.
Right, yeah. No, see, yeah, okay, so here's another interesting thing. Okay, connecting this back with like politics a little bit here too. So yeah, I like that about Civilization, how I like how the technology trees, and like how you can build certain kinds of societies, and I find like I want to, like, because it's a simulation, I'm like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna try to run a fascist society, and by the time I get enough of that like research to get there, I've usually gone into a whole different direction. Because like, I just can't bring myself to make like a militarist police state, even in this video game, you know.
It's like playing Mass Effect and going the renegade path. I'm just like, I don't like being a dick to all these people.
Right.
Is the extra ending really worth it? I don't know.
Right, yeah, is looking like a cool robot and having an extra ending worth it? Like, that was kind of what my friend said. Like, I was very fortunate to be in college when Mass Effect 1 and 2 came out, and so, like, I had one friend who was like, I'm doing Renegade all the way, the whole time, and just hearing her disappointment. Because, yeah, although she was also disappointed she couldn't get with Garrus, so she was very excited later on, because that was who she wanted to romance from the beginning. But anyway, other video game philosophy. Do we want to fuck aliens?
Yes.
Yes. The answer is a hard yes. The answer is not if we would. The answer is, how would it work? That's the real question. That's the real philosophical question about wanting to fuck aliens.
How?
Is how would it work exactly? No, I think that's actually so Mass Effect is a funny example of this too, where like it has a lot of ideas, but because of the like action RPG format, like they can only explore them very little. Like honestly, fucking all the aliens, that actually would have been an interesting kind of thing to think about. Like now I'm thinking about it, like there's like the jellyfish alien. I'm like, how would
Yeah, there's
humans
the L core, and
yeah.
I mean, I've watched a lot of you can do stuff with some hammer. I've seen some videos.
Sure. Oh yeah, sure. Oh yeah, of course. I know what you're talking about for sure. But yeah, but I mean like more like I guess more in like an X-rated Star Trek kind of vibe. You know what I mean? Like how do you deal
Yeah.
with like having a relationship with an alien who literally has no bones or like who is like so like not only different in how they communicate but like literally your physical bodies like just you're like I know I'm into this but how do I fuck it? How do we fuck each other?
Yeah, and Mass Effect does do some interesting things because, like, for instance, the Asari, while they do totally have the sex, they also have like a mind melding thing that they do,
Yeah.
and I think I didn't really do Garrus's romance, but the one time I did, I remember it being a conversation of Garrus wondering, I've been doing some research into how we actually do this, and it was like being very cute and like, aw.
Totally.
But
Yeah.
also like, how do you do this? What is your genitalia like? How what?
Yeah, no, exactly. Especially because of the weird way that they dealt with gender. Like, I understand the practicality, but also making every alien men, except for the one alien race that are all women, is very weird. Still,
I'm
like,
sorry, I lost your audio here.
no worries, no worries. Oh no, I was just commenting on how everyone in
And can
Mass
no
Effect.
longer hear you.
Oh, at all? Okay. Um, yeah. So, anything in particular you'd like to talk about? If there's anything like I don't know.
Oh, I kind of wanted to hear what you were going to say before the internet cut out.
Oh, okay, sure. Can you remind me a little bit?
Oh, we were talking. I had said something about how Garrus had researched like how to have the sex with the shepherd, and then then you started saying something and then cut out.
Oh, sure. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't remember what I was going to say, but yeah, it's just funny thinking about it. Like, I would love like, okay, I guess what I would like to express is my frustration that romance games are are considered this like trashy genre that are only allowed to be done by like indie developers and like they're either developed in Korea, Japan, or by individuals in other places. And like I feel like there's a real missed opportunity there. Like where the engine of Mass Effect, like you could use something like the cinematic engine of Mass Effect, but just for dating different kinds of aliens, right?
Yeah.
And wanting to I think like figuring that out would be a very fascinating gameplay experience. Like I think those would be fascinating conversations to like try to simulate and like play through. Like how I don't know how I'd feel in that situation, right? Like um if I got really into an alien and it's like because it's true, it's actually really fascinating. I guess it's actually not that different than just like having sex in real life, where it's just like you just ask each other what you like, and then like you sort of do those things, and you can kind of figure it out.
Right. I guess one of the things, because Mass Effect is a shooter RPG, that like a lot of the party members have to be humanoid in some way so that they can do all the things that Shepard can do, like take cover and things like that. And that kind of limits the imagination of what aliens can be, and therefore limiting the conversation of how do you have sex with the aliens.
Yeah, unfortunately, no, because it's true. Like they do, like yeah, they that's so true because they do try a little bit like with aliens that are NPCs, right? That are NPC races completely. They go a little further because yeah, I mean, because I agree. I'd like to see something a little more in video games, especially a little more creative than the Star Trek. You know, everyone's just a person with different looking faces on. You know, because like there's good reasons for that practicality of that, and as someone writing science fiction myself, I understand it completely. But when you have the freedom, you know what I mean, like to create anything, like basically what I'm saying is BioWare could create the perfect sex alien, and they're holding it back from us.
This alien was designed for pleasure.
This alien was actually no. I was just thinking of like Spore. I'm like, no, I bet some user on Spore. That's definitely like if you could get online to that game, there's like 1,000 of those. Just like this alien is perfect for fucking, and it's just like 9 penises and a vagina for a mouth or something like wild like that. No butthole somehow. How weird. How odd. No, it's true. It's kind of funny actually thinking about these questions. Like, it's not even that it's like a question of like how it would be. It's really just like, you know, we have the technology to explore like what it would be like to fuck different aliens, and yet we only have 2D, you know, visual novels if we want a romance game. Kind of sucks.
Yeah, I guess back before Telltale exploded, I was kind of hoping that that kind of format would take off by like more competent developers.
Yeah, right?
But then that didn't happen. Because like you were talking about how it'd be cool if there was a game that was just like Mass Effect's production values and just the cinematic mode,
Yeah.
and it was just like a cute little romance story, and we don't get that.
No, exactly. Like, yeah, I would love that, because like that is the thing, right? Where what constitutes like, yeah, these like bigger or complicated games are about game systems that are added into it. And so we have this weird experience where like, yeah, I can play a game from 10 years ago that's not that different from a game that's out, like basically Grand Theft Auto 5, right? Basically has maintained relevance for like 7 years. Because like it's not like a different game, like not like they would really make a different game like Red Dead Redemption 2, right? That's the like the advancement. Oh, we got horse dicks and you can shit on the street. That's the big advancement we got.
Or just even like San Andreas is still relevant to an extent because it's still like it's clunkier, but it's still the same game.
Actually, San Andreas is still the best one. Actually, it maintains because A, they have bicycles.
True.
B, they have the stats too that have relevant. Like I love that game so much. Like I've never had so much fun like going to a fast food place and going to the gym as I have in San Andreas. Like no game, nothing has made me want to do that because like, it's actually like not only is like the gameplay part of that fun, but like it like all just works together so well. Like oh that one I think is actually pretty brilliant as far as like the Grand Theft Auto style of open world goes. That's like that one I think is still kind of unmatched in my opinion.
I remember taking care of CJ way better than I ever took care of myself.
Yes, exactly. I want to make sure he looks good. I want to make sure he's all buff and shit. You know, like that's the other thing that's fun about riding bikes in that game is like, because it also increases your like stamina stats or whatever. So it's really fun.
One of my favorite things, like, oh my god, like once you unlock all of the islands, you can unlock triathlons and marathons and stuff like that. And I remember working out so I could win the fucking marathons and triathlons.
No, I just love that. I love the like. How did you play it on a console or on the PC? I guess it doesn't really matter. But
I played it all over the place at various points.
Okay, no, same here. But no, because I was just that image of just like the screen of like CJ like you know doing pumping iron and then like this cutting of like you or I, you know, he's like tapping that button, you know, he's like hitting that button, hitting that circle button or whatever. Good times. Yeah, no, seriously. Okay, nothing has. That's actually really fascinating. Like, we've tapped into something actually I've never considered before, which is like how San Andreas got me into things I am not interested in any other context. You know, working out, like fitness stuff, like not even sports games really. Like, it's so bizarre. Like, it's weird. Like, what is it about that? I guess it's the combination of like the character and like the world, because like part of it is that CJ is a compelling character, right? He's a compelling protagonist, more so than like Nico Bellic or the previous ones, like unnamed protagonist from Grand Theft Auto 3. Very compelling character who they could not animate the mouth of, but that's 2001.
or like the hands or anything.
Or the hands. Yeah. Well, no, that was the funny thing where like I played those in the PC, and so I like this was at the time when I was really into like futzing around. Like I had like a GeoCities and stuff. This really tells you when this was too. And so like you can find the like character file and just like it's just a what's it called, a MS Paint document, so you can just
really?
draw on it. Yeah, you can just make the character look however you want, which is, or at least within the confines of like their body type can't be changed, but you can draw on them however you want. And I just found that really fascinating. It was like just because honestly it was this thing where it was recreating like part of childhood play for me, where like that was part of childhood play with action figures for me, was like using markers to like denote blood and stuff. And because of that, like I still have a lot of them, and like they're still marked up. And my favorite, of course, is my Will Riker from Star Trek action figure, whose face is bright blue because 25 years ago and here we are today. It's like it never goes away. But anyway, so yeah, I feel like that's where the strength of those kinds of things come in. And I feel like San Andreas, of like the Rockstar games, I think takes advantage of like not only what makes them fun, but how like the mundaneness can make it fun,
Yeah, like it's game like the thing I like trying to turn San Andreas almost into The Sims, where like I'm just buying a house and I'm going to the gym, and at night I go dancing and hang out with my girlfriend, and this is my life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think
like there are even small jobs, like early on you can find a delivery job, and I'm just like, that's my job. I'm a delivery person.
No, exactly. You can live like a relatively, it's funny, it's hilarious. Yeah, you can turn that game into The Sims more so than I think any other one. I feel it's bizarre. I think it's because also your character gets hungry, which I also
yes
like. I think that's something that I think game designers are too afraid of that. I think like in an open world game, like being hungry, I think is a great weakness to have.
Well, I mean, there's lots of new survival games coming out that have all sorts of stuff like that. But they don't capture the mundanity of modern life, because they're always like survive in the wilderness or this post-apocalyptic situation. It's never like survive in this modern city. Like
yeah, no, right, yeah, exactly. It's never like you have you have just moved to this new city and you have a 9-to-5 job. It's yeah, like I think weirdly enough the closest thing to that, which is a totally different kind of game, is Almost Sometimes Monsters. Like that game kind of captures
I played that. Yeah,
like
that totally does.
At least at the beginning, especially because like that's pretty much like the motivation there. Yeah, no, it's interesting. Yeah, it's just sort of how like basically I feel like, yeah, because of like the way that there are systems that can be used to do things that they're just not used for, because of like just like whatever they're afraid of, you know what I mean? Like you need 100 dart throwing games instead of having like, I don't know, just like a compelling relationship. I don't know. I don't know. It's a hard one. It's like I just feel like there's so many more possibilities for video games. Like video games, I think of any art form is where anything kind of can be possible. I guess animation in general is where anything can be possible, and yet it's a bunch of short brown hair and white men shooting people. Like 90% of the games, maybe less now. Depends on how you think. Yeah, survival games like Rust kind of comes to mind, where it's just a bunch of shirtless, bald men hitting things with rocks,
Yeah, video games are kind of like the medium with some of the most potential and the least results.
Yeah. Oh, okay, so yeah, again, bring it back around. This is where like capitalism comes big into it, right? Where like games that have like cinematic, like certain elements of some of these bigger games could be made into a great like 3 or 5 hour game experience, like for like romance or mundanity. But because of, the way that like EA, for example, right? EA is like a little bit like the Disney of video games in some ways, I guess.
in terms of their business practices, anyway.
Yes. No, that's what I mean. No, oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah, excuse me. Yeah, let me not mince words here. I mean, in that they want to control the
Okay.
entire industry, at the detriment of the companies that they buy. Rip BioWare.
God, I was actually missing Mass Effect a lot and lowered myself to play Andromeda recently, and I don't know why I do that to myself.
Yeah. See, yeah, it's the same for me. Like, I replayed all 3 Mass Effects a couple years ago, and yeah, I haven't moved on to try, like, Andromeda or whatever. Isn't it that because it requires, like, an EA, like, their own service kind of thing, right?
I don't know, because I just have Origin on my PC and it
Oh, okay.
runs fine through that, so it's a-okay that way.
Okay.
But like, I guess the only reason I wanted to play Andromeda was because I miss some of the aesthetics, even if the characters and story and the worlds they make with them are also not good. I just want
Yeah.
the feel of Mass Effect again.
No, it's really true. Yeah, nothing can quite capture probably like yeah, that feeling I had like Mass Effect, and then Dragon Age afterward to a lesser extent. Like Mass Effect and Dragon Age because of like the nerdy ass people I was around and being in college at the time. Like literally when I got Mass Effect, like I played through the intro and then I watched like 8 other people play through it and like I do just remember that feeling you get like it's like kind of quaint now thinking like back in 2007 it was really cool to like pick from 3 options and then having the characters mention them at the very beginning. I was like, oh, that's really cool. But yeah, and like
I was born in space. Wow,
Yeah.
wow, how'd you know?
How did you know? Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, well, no, because like, yeah, I'm so used to games that give you a bunch of options and then like they don't really matter, and so they're like, no, it could possibly matter. It's very cool, and like I said, so yeah, this like the opening, especially like I watched it many times, but like yeah, there's just this experience of it where like I played through it, and then my friend who lived across the hall played it, and he literally did not leave my room for 3 days, and just like he like speed ran the game. He like beat the whole story in like 17 or 19 hours. Like literally, it was like Friday night I got the game, and then he started playing it, and Sunday morning he beat it. You know.
That actually reminds me. I when I first got my Xbox 360, the first 2 games I got on it were BioShock and Mass Effect, and I got those almost solely because they did really well at like the Spike Game Awards or some shit like that.
Yeah.
And I was really excited to play BioShock and was like less excited to play Mass Effect, but then the intro to BioShock scared me and I put it down and just played Mass Effect, and that just changed my life forever.
Right, yeah, for sure. No, yeah, Mass Effect, actually, yeah, I feel you there. That's actually one thing where I really appreciate having consoles, because I kind of have stopped. I stopped after, like, the PS3 and the Xbox 360. But on my, excuse me, but because of that, on my 360, there are literally, like, 10 Mass Effect profiles of varying levels of completion, and all of them are different people. It's wild. Excuse me. Yeah, and it's really fascinating, like, the ways it's weird too trying to think about how those games like captured like what was so good about them and why they were so compelling, because like Dragon Age I had the same experience with when that game came out. Literally I had like a friend group of like 4 or 5 people, and for like a month that's all we talked about, because that's what we were all doing. We were all playing through Dragon Age. You know, and so we all had different opinions on like the some of the moral choices on the different characters. You know, like I really liked Morrigan because I'm into like, you know, pagan witchery shit, and my friend who's a much more like uptight like Christian furry guy, he was like, you know, he was more into like Alistair. Like he was definitely one of the guys who wanted to make Alistair gay. You know, because I think in Dragon Age that's one thing I really like, which I don't know is explicit, but I think in like every character is basically bisexual if you get them to fall in love with the player character. As far as I know. I don't think that's true,
definitely the thing in the second one.
Yeah.
I think in the first and third one people have set sexualities, but in the second one
that's
you
right.
can bang anyone.
That's right. Yeah, everyone's into you or can be into you. Yeah.
Yes.
No, and that's one thing I liked about it. Yeah, I guess it's kind of funny. So I think part of it, thinking about what it is that appealed to me a lot about Dragon Age, is that so yeah, there's certain kinds of fantasies that those games can like help fulfill, right? So like in Dragon Age, the thing that I loved to do, like I set up, I like looked up to make sure how to do is how you can, if you romance Liliana, and then you take her and Zevran to this like brothel, you can have a four-way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because and it's a very specific circumstance because of that. Because like basically, it's like if you're I don't know. Yeah, it's like if you go there, Liliana is interested, and then if Zevran's there, the woman who you're courting is interested in him, or like they were friends. And so yeah, it's just like this one really specific circumstance.
That's actually a thing in the game?
Yeah, that's a thing in the game.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, no, that's actually.
I didn't realize, because that requires them to actually just think about all the different dynamic choices you could have made to get to that situation. And like, gotta think like how many people even see that at all. I didn't know it happens or exists. Like,
Right, no, exactly. Yeah, and I think part of it was definitely I had I think I had an official guide because this was I was still young enough where it was like, what do we get you for Christmas? And I'm just like, well, I'm playing this game, so and I think that might have been how I found out about it. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's one of those things. Yeah, that's just so. That's why I'm so disappointed, honestly, with BioWare. Like, I was a huge fan of them before, like from Knights of the Old Republic, honestly, onward, and so like that was sort of the disappointment over time had been where like there are these really complicated social dynamics in some of the games, and like I don't know that they explore that, or like the action fantasy format isn't really a good format to explore those things, but they made a good system to explore it. Like,
yeah.
That's what I mean. That's why I'm like I kind of wish like even because I like the personally I know that it's a little clunky, but I like the conversation cinematics of those games. You know, I think it's fine.
Yeah, the conversation wheel does a lot of good.
Oh yeah, that especially too. Yeah, I was referring more to like cinematography, but yes, I love the Mass Effect conversation wheel is really good. Yeah, that's something I actually think about too a lot because I was really into adventure games when I was younger. So I played Day of the Tentacle and Sam and Max, which Day of the Tentacle, you know, it's based on these like text adventure games, and I think when it first came out, it didn't have voice acting, so every line you say is written out, like so you select the full statement. Versus Sam and Max or Mass Effect, where you pick more of like the emotion of the statement, and then what they actually say, you know, can be whatever, and I love that so much. I think that really works really well, especially.
It does have some problems. Like I was watching Giant Bomb's Alex Navarro play Mass Effect 3, and early on he is playing as Femshep, and he is getting hit on by Vega, I think is his name. I can't really remember very well.
Yeah, the big beefy dude who I think is gay, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway,
like he had two choices of flirt back or just be an absolute dick. And it's just like, that's not. I just want to say stop flirting with it. I don't want to like ruin this man's whole career.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's like I want the middle ground. I don't want to threaten him. I don't want to accept either. Yeah.
I guess this guy just has to hate me now. Okay, fine.
Right. Yeah. That's the big issue with Mass Effect, where like I said, where I feel like if a lot of these same mechanics were applied to like a social, like where socialness is the whole point, they could be much better refined. But yeah, in Mass Effect, you have that weird thing where it's like, I'm better, like when I played through it a second time, I played through the whole trilogy, like I said, like 3 years ago, and I didn't end up making that many different choices. Like, I tried to make different choices from the first time I played, but like, the way it works is you're better off just not talking to somebody if you know that like you're gonna have a contentious relationship with that character. Like, basically I just talked to Liara because I was romancing her, and I didn't talk to anyone else because I'm like, I'm gonna have one bad conversation, and that's kind of it, you know.
God, it reminds me. I played Jade Empire a little bit.
Oh, I love
And
that
there was
one.
one conversation that like I never got to finish the whole game, and I only kind of have a hazy remember of it. But one thing I do remember is having a conversation with a character I kind of liked, and being the chosen one. I made some sarcastic joke about being the chosen one, and then they're like, "Oh, so you're not taking this seriously, you privileged piece of shit." And I'm just like,
Well, yeah,
and then like that just influenced their perception of me the
yeah.
entire game. I'm like, what? I can't say I'm sorry or anything.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like my example is from Knights of the Old Republic 2, which was made by Obsidian at the same time, but like they came out like Jade Empire. It's like the same year those two games came out, and in I don't remember Jade Empire. I don't think has. I think your companions don't have like there isn't a mechanic around their liking of you, but in Knights of the Republic 2, that's like the big mechanic is like their alignment, their like light dark side alignment changes based on how much they like you. And it's the same problem. Where like I liked this character a lot, like there's this like scoundrel yeah, like rogue character who I thought was really rad, and then I make a joke at her, and suddenly it's like, oh, I've just closed off that entire relationship for the rest of my 60 hours of gameplay. Fuck.
You're dead to them. Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of what happened, and I'm like, and it was the same kind of situation where I'm like, I don't even know, like, exactly what I said here, too. Like, without the voice acting, too, I think that's part where you lose a lot of that nuance, where, like, the writers might have had something in mind, where, like, what they said has a specific meaning, and then, like, because I can interpret it, I'm like, I didn't think it was that, what? Yeah, it's just like you say, it's just like, oh, you don't take this seriously? Well, I'll fight with you, but I don't care anymore. It's like, well, shit.
I'll help you defeat the evil, but I'm gonna complain the whole time.
I'm gonna complain the whole time. Oh my god, that was my friend with Morrigan. Like, if you're goody two shoes, but you keep Morrigan with you in, in Dragon Age, that was his whole experience. Was just Morrigan disapproves. Like, to the point that he made a joke about like making a collectible card game for it, and his whole deck would be 49 Morrigan disapproves and one dog.
It's a powerful deck.
It's a power. Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. No, the best part about it is like, I like some of those mechanics too, because like they have only an emotional cost, right? Like it's only how it affects you as the player that matters. Like that's what's kind of brilliant about them, and why them being so over dramatic is kind of frustrating, right? Anyway, wow.
Anyway,
Talk a lot about some simulated romance
well,
and fucking aliens. So yeah.
I feel like I bring up Mass Effect a lot because, like, early on, like those games came out when I was 13, and that is a pivotal moment in which people question a lot of things. And like, I feel like video games, especially early on, were one of the key elements in me like questioning my gender even way back then. Just like the simple, like the first act of like, I'm gonna play as the lady character, and that being like so subversive to everything that I had previously done in my life, and liking that way more, or just like in Oblivion or things like that. And one of the games that actually stuck out to me is Mirror's Edge, because you actually, it is a first-person game, but it is one of the few that actually render the whole body. So you would like run up to things, and you would like see feminine hands like stop yourself from running into things, and just in general stuff like that. And that was one of those moments of just like, I like this.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually one of the things about video games that is really cool. Like, I agree with you completely, and I love that interpretation of Mirror's Edge too, because like it's great. Yeah, that is totally valid. Like, yeah, there's a little bit of a transgenderness to playing video games, because, like, if you switch games, right, especially if the protagonist is baked in, like, one day you're Nathan Drake, and the next day you're Laura Croft, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there is a little bit of that, and I feel it, too, like, yeah, as well when I played games like Mass Effect. Actually, for me as well, even though I was like 19 at the time, had a similar kind of thing where that was a game where not only did I feel comfortable to like play as the woman, but like where romance, it was like I wanted to be the female character because romance was like part of why the game was sold on, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Oversold, of course. Like you don't actually get to fuck everybody, but 2 people in the whole game, I guess, is everybody, but whatever.
It was a different time.
It was, yeah, 2007 was a different time. Yeah, I know. Oh god, I learned a lot about that too. All those different video game controversies and how just like how ridiculous they get the further back you go because of like what we know of video games today versus like the first controversies are these like Atari games where like it's the bare minimum of understanding that you're running over somebody and they are splattering blood. And like it was still controversial, but yet no one has let it go. It's like, well, you can simulate anything, so that's too dangerous. Can't have people imagining things. Anyway, thank you so much. I had so much fun discussing
I had a lot of fun.
Mass Effect and stuff. Yeah, I would love. I always make this offer, but I'd love to chat again sometime.
Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe with another, like a topic in mind. But anyway, yeah. So, Ann Dawson, is there anything you'd like to plug before we go?
Yeah, my YouTube channel again, AndarNation Propaganda. I'm almost at 300 subscribers, so you, the viewer, could be the 300th. Lucky you.
Yes.
In particular, I think my favorite video I've done is called "Does History Repeat Itself? The 20s Roar Again," in which I try and combat the myth that history repeats itself.
Okay.
So yeah, check. I look very cute in that. I do a 1920s black and white, somewhat kind of sort of flapper aesthetic.
That is awesome. That is really
So,
rad. Hell yeah. Well,
yeah.
I'll make sure to link to that one in particular. Yeah, definitely check that out. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to Chaos Public Radio. This has been Gender Non-Conforming Chat with me, your host, Mary Jane Blank. You can find me on Twitter at MJBlank666, the show at Chaos Radio Cast, and you can support the show going to Ko-fi.com or patreon.com/chaospublicradio. I would like to give a special thanks to Lily Ashton for our wonderful logo. Follow her at Mothcub on the social medias. And another special thanks to Ann Dawson for being my lovely guest. And a final thanks to you for listening. Please consider rating the podcast and following it on your favorite podcasting network. And hopefully you can join me again next week.